talking about, I've known Greg since before I've known Kyle, and this is when I first started at Bosque School, and Greg, you know, he was the IT person. That's why Tony, you know, you're a man after his own heart. And so he's all, you know, was the IT guru at Bosque, a parent like I was. Just made a huge difference at the school. And as he was looking at what was next for him and doing, you know, creating his own business, I think you came to Axion or came to me about the possibility of financing way back in the Walt Taylor days, which most of you don't know about and some of you do. And Greg was one of our largest loans at that time. So as we were really gearing up and had brought on a lending officer, Walt, to take us to that next level of larger loans, Greg was one of our first. We often work with clients, as you know, who are very low tech. You know, restaurants and healthcare and all sorts of endeavors. Greg, as you can tell, if you read through his information on CreativeC, his executive summary, which I read through 3 times and still don't understand, he is very high-tech. And I said, Greg, you don't need to bring in your prototypes, knowing that they might be big, but Greg is so passionate. He brought in his prototypes, and so hopefully we'll be able to pan into those so that Greg can talk a few minutes. You know, it'll be a little bit, you know, but a few minutes, and then we can ask questions, and then I'll make sure that we complete by 9:50. It'll be hard because I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions. This is high brain powered stuff. So Greg, welcome. We're very excited to have you. And have you Yes, we did.
Okay, good.
Yes,
So also
Okay.
I just want to note that Greg is our last client speaker of the year at these staff meetings. So I know you all listen so generously, but even more generously as he is going to complete the year for us.
Okay, so yes, I'm Greg Scantlen. I'm CEO of CreativeC. We have 2 employees and lots of consultants. But I want to thank you all because as a client, what you've helped me do is a lot of research and development, but we've actually commercialized 1 product.
Oh, wow.
Okay, and I have several of these. Maybe you could just hand it around.
Sure.
But you can see how this box looks a little bit like that box. And this product is it's sort of a combination instrument that I do with another New Mexico company out of Angel Fire, and it's a virtual chemistry laboratory.
Wow.
Okay, so you can do chemistry on this box. We've sold 20 to 30 of these. They're all over the world. We're shipping one to Peru on Thursday. So this is a very exotic sort of boutique instrument. And so what I'm trying to do now is sort of broaden scope and be able to increase revenue by increasing sales, by increasing volume. Okay? So this is high performance computing, and right now there's radical changes that are going on. And if you read just the first couple of sentences, the U.S. government has $1 billion in awards to 5 supercomputers that they'll use around the United States. The first system goes into Los Alamos, and they're working on it now. But all of these systems use something called accelerators, and this is what's new, okay? And this, you might notice, Kyle, looks a lot like a gaming card. Yeah. Okay, so if you want, you can just pass them around if you want. Okay, so this is the NVIDIA version, this is the Intel version, and the government, as it often does, has set up competition between the 2. Okay? So, so if you want to understand compute power, there is this thing called a flop. Okay, does anybody know? The IT guys should definitely know what a flop is. But, okay, so it's a floating point operation, and they'll always talk about computers in flops. Okay, so this is a floating point operation. So 2.2 times 2.2 gives you 4.84. So a computer keeps track of the numbers separately from the decimal points. That's why it's a floating, right, operation. And this is multiplication, right? So if you look at this desktop calculator, it's about 10 flops, okay? That card that you're holding is 1 trillion flops.
Whoa.
Okay? So, I mean, basically, if everybody in the world had one of these, okay, using it at once, you would need like, 12 Earths? 12 or 13 Earths full of people using a calculator, okay? And so this is about scale also. And in high-performance computing, they're always trying to make these computers bigger. I mean, they're so big that they use as much energy as a small city, right? And so the chemistry is what I want you to scale into. Okay, so everybody hears about the cloud and their apps. Okay, so this looks a lot like a computer you might put by your desk, right? So a computer like this will do on the order of 20 to 30 billion flops. Okay, so you need 20 or 30 of these to equal one of those cards. Okay, so these machines have gotten too powerful, it doesn't make sense to put one at your desk. So they build clouds out of these, and they have 100 people use one of these. Okay? So the compute centers themselves, though, need a lot more power. So we use 4 of these cards. So think of a card as 20 of these. Okay, that's a lot like the data center that somebody builds. They have refrigerator-looking boxes, and those boxes are full of computers, right? So what we do is you can start your development with this. This is about developing code to run on the accelerators. Okay, you have to change the code. And a really basic way to understand this is all programs that are out there pretty much were written with flowcharts, right? But these things operate more like a Gantt chart. And so you have to make that transition, you have to change the code. Okay? So you can get started with this basic box, which is a lot like something you would put by your desk. And then, this is kind of an old beat up prototype, but see there's 2 accelerators in there. Okay, so we put this on here. See if that'll work. Okay, we put one on the other side, and now you have a cluster. And this cluster is very similar to the whole data center. All right, so what you can do is you can develop code, and you can test it, and you can make the transition to the new math, whatever, accelerators. So to give you an idea, right now we're doing a project with Los Alamos where we're doing 50 million atoms. Okay, so it's a bar of copper, might be lead, but whatever, it's a metal bar, and it's hit by another metal bar, and what we're doing is we're simulating the compression wave, the shock wave, okay, that goes through. So we're doing 50 million atoms, we're using 4 of these cards at once. We're 8 to 20 times faster than the conventional box by adding the boxes on the side. So what that means is work that usually takes a couple of weeks, they can do in a day. Okay, and that makes the workflow doable. Does that make sense to everybody? Yes. Okay, so the simulation that we're doing with all this math and all this horsepower, it's a millionth of a blink of the eye. Okay, so that's the difference between this on your desk, okay, and doing science.
Yeah.
Okay, and so there is just an insatiable appetite for more flops. Okay, so as many flops as we can put in a box, it'll be used. But computational science is just becoming more and more important in developing things like alloys and solar cells and biofuels. I mean, it just goes on and on.
And then, Greg, how did you use the Axion loan to do all this?
Yeah, so I work with a company in New Mexico called Manufacturing Technology, Inc., and we designed these boxes. So we basically designed our whole system from scratch in order to make it usable in an office. If you've ever been in a high-performance computing center, it's really loud.
We pass these around.
Yeah, in fact, so this product was developed using Axion dollars.
Okay,
yeah.
good.
Okay, so R&D is very expensive, as you might know. But to my knowledge, you know, we have more power, more compute power that can be more accessible to a single scientist in an office than any other product that's out there. Yeah. So so R&D is you know, very expensive, and we're very glad to have been a client and been able to do this. I mean, I don't think we would have been able to do it otherwise.
Wow, great.
Yeah.
So I want to give people the chance to ask questions. If you, Meta.
So I'm curious. You said you had sold 20 around the country, around the world. The one that you sold in Peru. What?
So the instrument itself, the Medea instrument, we've sold 20 of those, but we've sold about 200 nodes.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so the general machine, about 200,
Okay.
but the very specific machine for doing chemistry,
Yeah.
about 20.
Okay.
Okay, and so now we're trying to take that chemistry machine and turn it into a general purpose chemistry machine. But the chemistry is being done at government locations, academia, and corporate, a lot of like Fortune 500 companies.
And what is the cost of one of those 200 units?
So it really varies, but it's probably going to be a minimum of 10 to 15,000, and it goes up to about 60,000 each.
Wow.
Okay, good.
But typically they're 20 to 30,000.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting.
There's lots
All
of
that
different
power.
ways to build them.
Right.
The other thing that we do that's kind of special, most computer centers, they're rated on these flops, and they have a very sort of generic way of calculating the flops. But what we do is we try to tune all the different parts to the work that's being done. Okay, and in that way we get more efficiency, and a lot of times you can do something in your office that you would never think you could do without hooking up to a large data center. One of the really new things is deep learning, and using computers to learn how to read brain waves and things like that. Yeah, so I don't know if you know the Mind Research Network.
Yeah.
But they have, I think, 3 or 4 of our machines.
Oh,
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Cool.
I visited NCAR, Wyoming Supercomputing Center. Do you?
I have not worked with NCAR, but I have sort of a common connection. There is a company out of the UK called Alinea, and they have a technical support person in Colorado. And I've done several demos and things with him at conventions. Yeah, so I haven't worked with NCAR. I have machines in the King's University in Saudi Arabia. We have some in Paris, France. This one is going to Peru. Well, not this one, but one exactly like this with the parts in it. Yeah, is going to Peru. Well, I ship it to San Diego, and then it'll be loaded with the software and tested, and then they'll ship it to Peru. Yeah. Yes.
Kyle.
So, what do you think will be 5 to 10 years from now the primary use of these? Or where do you see it going, I guess?
Okay, so I think that you need to put a machine like this close to scientists, because you need this interactive what-if place, sandbox to work. Okay, and I think these machines will then... so I have a second patent that's actually in review right now, and that patent involves recruiting a cloud. But having the local sandbox, you'll know which cloud to recruit because they're all becoming different, right? I don't know if you know Microsoft Azure. They just came out with like 5 different instances. And even in this one simulation that we're doing, you would use one of those instances to get the experiment ready, and then you would use a different one to run it. Okay, so it's very difficult to do that on the cloud. In the government, they have large centers where there's usually what's called a wall time, so you get a maximum amount of time for any job that you submit. Because these machines, can be personal, you can run it as long as you want, and that can be a big advantage. So just workflow for a scientist, having a local processing center that tells you something about what you need to really do a lot of work, I think it makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
So what's been your experience of working with Axion?
Bob.
What do you see is good? What do you see that we should change up that would help make a difference for entrepreneurs?
I really
like
have
you?
no complaints whatsoever. Because I'm local, sometimes I just stop in and drop a check, and I just really have had no problems. I find everybody here just easy to work with and responsive, and so I'm happy to say I have no complaints whatsoever. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Good. And one more question, Justin?
It's not really a question
Okay,
so
good.
much, just a comment. I think we love to measure impact at Axion, and for all of the staff members who aren't face-to-face with clients all the time, they like to see the impact of the work they do. And I think Greg's work is a really, really good example of the impact and just like the trickle down effect that it has. Because like you mentioned, the dollars that we provided and that he was able to leverage in his business allowed him to create this machine. And think of all of the applications around the world that are helping to maybe improve medicine and healthcare and just science and really advance the whole world. So I think it's a really, really cool case of how far a dollar at Axiom can go. And that's what inspires me about Greg.
What a great way to complete our time with